Hi, fellow tea lovers. Settle in, because we've got a story. I'm Nell.
And I'm Rose, and today we're bringing you the tea.
Across eras. Greetings.
Hello.
Spooky October greetings.
I love fall. I know it's cliche, but I never feel more energized than this season.
Same. The weather is still a little toasty for fall, but it felt nice outside today.
Oh, yeah.
It was hot, but...
Yeah, but...
The leaves are definitely falling. I spent Saturday leaf blowing in my backyard. That was great.
We finally tackled the goat head army. If you've ever stepped on one of those little bastards, you know. They hide, they wait for you. I swear they're sentient. We sort of let our backyard go a lot this summer. They ended up getting taller than me.
Dang, I had not looked out there. Wow.
I know, so we finally have the yard back. Haha.
Nice. Well, I am going to tell you today. I'm going to tell you a little spooky story in the spirit of Spooktober. And I will put a disclaimer on this that I am going to tell you this story as it was told to me when I went on a haunted history tour in the French Quarter of New Orleans.
Oh, I got to go on one in Edinburgh, and I love ghost tours. Because it's history, but it's also just like that little tongue-in-cheek fun. Like, there's always really fun actors working those gigs.
Guys, that's what we're doing tonight.
Yes, so we are checking out the...
tonight as of recording.
As of recording. So after we tell ghost stories here, we're going to go check out our local ghost tour, and then we're going to come back and tell you what we learned.
Yeah, I paid the extra money for the ghosty detector. I'm also obviously bringing my phone because even though it says no video or audio recording, it also says to bring a digital camera. And I don't know any people who aren't college aged who own a separate digital camera right now. And that's just because they're cool again, I think.
When I was in middle school, we had a digital camera. It was one of those big box things that you put floppy disks into.
Oh, what?
Yeah, it was that weird crossover time where digital cameras were becoming a little bit more common, but floppy disks were still absolutely on the table as a storage device.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Delphine McCarty was born March 19th, 1787, to a wealthy land-owning family in New Orleans. Her mother was this amazing hostess who loved throwing parties that would last into the wee hours of the night. Because, what else are 18th century landowners doing with their time, right?
I get to sharpen my quills.
Not working. So these parties would include super fun activities like jumping into the canals on their property. The property was quite large, by the way. Her family owned more than 1,300 acres right near the Mississippi. It's in a part of New Orleans that today it would be just kind of east of the French Quarter, and the area is known as Bywater. You know, it's by the water, obviously. Other fun party activities included stealing the clothes and shoes of male guests so that they would have to return home in bare feet and nightshirts.
On the Chauvelet. How dare.
Oh, and I also feel like these barefoot men aren't just walking home. Let's be real. They've got, at the very least, they have a horse.
Well, it's okay, think about what is a good prank. That if you can get the penny out from under the glass without getting the water.
Oh, yeah.
If somebody described that offhandedly in a diary entry, and then you waited 200 years and read that, and that was your only way to describe that prank activity, it would look dumb as hell. We have that space filter with these activities where we're well, are you doing that for entertainment? Because there isn't really any context.
I thought that continually when we watched the Decameron.
Yeah.
All the things they did.
Mm-hmm.
And hiding people's clothes is definitely a fun prank when there's water involved. So at age 14, Delphine McCarty married the 35-year-old widow Ramon Lopez y Angulo de la Candelaria. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. I was just doing my best nightly news reporter voice.
I know who you're doing.
So we live in the southwest of America, and we have a very heavy Hispanic population. So a lot of words have the Spanish pronunciation. And newscasters are the best.
Newscasters, they're trying to be very precise. They're trying to make sure that they are pronouncing it correctly. And it's just very formal and
It
It's
really
all
is.
square angles, and we
It
definitely
is.
had 3 people consult on this. It's just funny.
I love it. So Ramon was an officer of the Spanish crown, second in command to the governor of Louisiana at that time. However, he was currently on bad terms with the crown. He pretty much blamed them for the death of his previous wife and child, for forcing them to sail at the time they did. It was a really rough time to sail.
Oh,
Yeah, he was mad. And so, because he was mad at them, he decided to defy their orders, which were to prohibit the, quote, importation of humans taken captive in Africa.
So he ignored their orders and continued the slave trade in his port.
Yep. Yeah. So Spain wanted to wait until they had a more peaceful environment for the human trafficking trade.
That was the reason?
Yes.
Like, oh, it's a little bit stormy to be profitable. Good Lord.
Yeah. So he ignored him and did this anyways. So with that happening, plus the rumor that Spain was mad at him because he married without permission. Just like them old kings of yore.
The higher up you get in the hierarchy, the more your marriage matters dynastically.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
So Spain removed his prominent position and started basically shuffling him and sometimes Delphine around the globe.
Go to this stupid post, go
Yep.
to this stupid... It's basically Siberia over and over again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Eventually, though, Ramon was pardoned and appointed Spanish consul to New Orleans under the new American administration. Yeah. So at that time, Delphine went to Havana where she was pregnant and waiting for him, just going to meet him, and they could go home to New Orleans. But on January 11th, 1805, his boat hit a sandbar off the shore of Havana.
Oh, he was like
And he
almost
died.
there.
Right, he was so close.
Oh my gosh.
Right around that time, homegirl gives birth. So she stays in Havana long enough to have her husband buried and have her baby baptized. And then she goes back to New Orleans, but she finds it's very different now that it's under American rule. So, moving ahead 2 years, 1807, her mom dies. Then a few weeks later, she marries someone else. And I assume the wedding was planned. I have no idea.
That's a shortish amount of time in terms of mourning periods, but at the same time, it's not like she can earn her own money. So
Right.
she does have to have a plan. She's
Right.
got a kid.
Her parents have money, though.
Yeah.
But maybe she's...
Their input isn't necessarily
That's true. That's true.
guaranteed.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So she marries this guy. He's an older Frenchman. He's a widower, Jean-Paul Blanc. And when he arrived in New Orleans a few years earlier, he quickly became known as a ruthless businessman who was very active in the slave trade, politics, and was well known for his association with the notorious pirate brothers, Jean and Pierre Lafitte.
Wow, no kidding. That's a lot of pots to dip your fingers in.
No kidding.
Jack of all trades.
And then, with the death of her mom, she ended up receiving an inheritance that would have been worth today around $2 million.
Damn.
Yeah, not too bad.
Not shabby.
And then her father, he did not remarry, but he followed this popular but not talked about in society tradition of having a long-term relationship with a woman who's 1/4 black. Her name was Sophie. And Sophie and her dad then went on to have a kid in 1815. And they named Delphine and her brother as godparents. But you know what? By then, she and her second husband had 4 more kids.
Oh, wow.
They were fine.
Yeah.
Right. So, and her husband split their time between this 2-story townhouse they had on Royal Street in Conti and a plantation that her mom had left her down on the banks of the Mississippi River back in Bywater.
Ah, the country estate.
Yeah. So I mapped it all out, of course. Do you know how many steps I've put in the French Quarter in my visits to my friends? So the house that was on Royal and Conti, that would be on the western side of the French Quarter today. So not the edge of what you would call the French Quarter, but pretty darn close. The plantation was, back in Bywater. So today, walking on the streets that we have now, that would take you 45 minutes.
Well, it's not like they're doing their own walking, really.
Oh,
To be
100% no.
honest.
The maps, they didn't have an option, they have bus ride, biking, walking,
Right.
driving. They did not have horse.
Right. I would like sedan chair directions, please, Siri.
carriage. So I mean, I don't know how long carriages took, but also they definitely didn't have the roads that we have now.
Mhm.
So that was
Travel's
not a
just
small
taking longer.
distance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was where they split their time, and that was because he was like president or something of the bank that was right in the same corner where their townhouse was.
Mhm.
Husband number 2, unfortunately, dies at the age of 50. So 28-year-old Delphine is a widow again. And it turned out he died with a lot of debt.
Oh.
So she did this thing where she was like, I renounce and relinquish all of our community property to the court so that way she could keep her own personal assets.
Oh, okay. So anything that was accumulated during the marriage
Yeah.
reverts to the court to pay the debtors, but then what she brought into the marriage
Yeah.
is her like bride
Yeah.
portion. Okay, I've definitely heard of that.
Yeah, same.
Mhm.
However, at auction, she purchased a lot of it back with her own money.
Tricky.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Even in doing that, it did take almost a decade auctioning off the property, which included humans, to settle the debts. During that time, there was a 5-year time span in which 8 of the enslaved people in her household died. And it was enough that like people started talking about it.
Well, with 2 husbands gone and then everybody in your household starts dying, that's cursed territory, dear.
Right. The people who died in that 5-year time span, they were children and then women of childbearing age. Then her dad dies. And he leaves her enough money to settle the debts, and she's like, cool, and she moves on with her life. In 1825, Delphine, she's like this savvy businesswoman. She's rich. She's good. She can handle it. But, she's still fairly young. She meets this guy, Dr. Louis Lalaurie. He had come over from France to, quote, destroy hunches, but the kind in your back.
Oh, back doctor.
Yeah. He was like, maybe we would be like, oh, a
Less Sherlock
chiropractor.
Holmes, more
Yes,
MD.
I know. I was like, wow, he's here to destroy hunches. Truth. No.
Private investigator. Sorry.
Yeah, but his devices, they all looked really rough and kind of torturous.
Yeah.
One of Delphine's daughters needs to be straightened out in the spinal sense.
Mm,
So he
absolutely.
shows up and he goes to help. It didn't cure her, obviously. But that's okay. Delphine was still, a rather youngish woman of 38. And they started a bit of an affair. And they weren't married. And then she got pregnant. Did I mention that he was 23?
You fell prey to the older widow.
Indeed. So he's like, ooh. And he goes back to France.
Oh, no.
And then his family's like, you knocked up a society woman? And poof, back in New Orleans. And he is getting married. Letters that the married couple sent to their friends during their relationship showed that they were not happy. There was a lot of fighting, separating, getting back together, fighting, breakup, repeat.
It's almost like that's not going to make for a happy marriage, of course.
I know, right? It's super weird. And then in 1831, Delphine bought the house that is now the notorious Lalaurie Mansion on Royal Street and Governor Nichols Street.
Walking tour.
Yes, it's a walking tour. I saw it on the walking tour. It was very interesting. It's probably just something to do with the French Quarter being like humid and having a distinct smell. I'm not going to describe it because I make it sound so bad, but it's not that bad.
Bad smell is subjective and many smells are interesting.
Fair, but it's a lot of the undertones of it are like trash, pee, and beer. So she buys this house, and it's only a 13-minute walk from like the old house that she used to live in on Royal and Conti. By the end of 1832, she was petitioning for a separation. This is a quote, okay? For a separation from the bed and board of her husband.
Mm-hmm. Bonnie and Buxom and bed and board. That's old style wedding vows.
So during this dissolution of bed and board, rumors again of her unhappiness were spreading. People were saying, she's so upset, but it's all her fault. She did it to herself. Well, it's number 3. What do you expect? And also, there were a little bit of rumors happening that she was abusing her enslaved people, enough so that it warranted someone to come and check. And whatever they decided, they took all her enslaved people away. She literally went out and bought them right back. But
so she basically had a penalty however long it takes for you to get the money back to buy them back, and that's good enough.
Like, if you have the money tomorrow when they're at auction, cool. So, like, something to you, like, let's say, don't park in this handicap spot because the fine is $150. Well, yeah, but if you're rich, you're like, oh, that's just the cost of parking here, $150.
That's just the cost of doing business.
The way it's told, it's the same attitude as like, let me dig out some couch change and go take care of it.
Gross in every context.
We're about to get gross, too. So, April 10th, 1834, Delphine LaLaurie is holding a dinner party for her nearest and dearest. If you watch Gilded Age or Bridgerton, or you just know things, you'll know that dinner parties sometimes lasted very, very, very late.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole experience.
Yeah, exactly. During the dinner, the guests started to smell smoke. This is supposedly around midnight. However, it's not enough smoke for them to worry. It's more like tell your enslaved people to deal with it kind of smoke.
Smoke-causing things that are low-level concern.
All right. But then the smoke starts growing until they can't ignore it, and Delphine's snapping at the poor person bringing her food to, like, go and fix the problem. Later, guests would recall feeling rather uncomfortable in that moment. Her snappiness, they said, was harsher than needed. And remember the time that little enslaved girl died, they said? Didn't she fall out the window on the 3rd floor trying to get away from Delphine? She'd been brushing her hair and accidentally pulled at a tingle. And one of the neighbors says she saw Delphine herself burying the little girl in the courtyard. The window? That was a window, but it was quickly filled in with cement and no mention was made of it.
Because the thing is, if those little whispers are not going on, you can get away with so much in this era. But once they are, you are under so much societal scrutiny.
Yeah. Anyway, this poor enslaved person who's serving her the food hurries back and whispers to Delphine they could not control the fire and she needed to come quick. So she instructs the guests and those serving the food to take the dinner party out into the street while she takes care of the smoke issue. From the street, dinner guests start to see flames coming from the kitchen. And at this time, the kitchen is separated from the house. You go through the outside courtyard to get to it. Yeah. One of the guests finally calls upon the fire brigade. One firefighter asks Delphine to unlock the kitchen door. They need a key, and there's flames coming out from under the door now.
This is clearly the problem zone.
Yeah, she's like, no, you can't have the key. I don't know where the key is. It's like probably hanging around her neck, you know? She's like, I don't know where the key is. Like, it's no big deal. It's cool. Just like spray water under the door. Whatever, dude. The crowd of onlookers is starting to grow in the street, and they're like, bro, comply. Unlock the door, Delphine. Like flames. Your whole house is going to burn down. And she finally does. They find her cook burning on fire, not deceased yet, is chained to the stove. And the cook's like, I set this on purpose because Madame is angry with me and I don't want to go to the attic. I'd rather die. Wow. And so they're like still struggling to get the flames under control. There's this lady, she needs medical attention. And the crowd of onlookers is growing. It like grows to 2,000 people pretty quickly. They're getting really annoyed because they're expecting the sheriff and he's not there yet. So they're like, we're just going to take matters into our own hands, and they like break down the door to the attic. But inside, horrors beyond imagining. According to the New Orleans Bee, which was a newspaper at the time, please remember, news reporting at the time was not exactly factual, and historians argue that the Bee's article about the fire, the enslaved people, and the LaLauries was based on information they obtained by hearsay. End of disclaimer. So that was the city's French language newspaper, and it said that the firefighters discovered, quote, 7 enslaved people, more or less horribly mutilated, locked inside the building as they attempted to control the flames. The Bee went on to condemn the, quote, barbarous and fiendish atrocities committed by the woman LaLaurie upon the persons of her slaves. Rumors started spreading right away. Fetuses in jars! Woman whose bones were like all broken, and then she'd been left to heal like in a box, so she had to scuttle like a crab.
Well, she's just a serial killer.
Mm-hmm. They weren't all dead. A man whose intestines were outside his body, someone whose skin was peeled back so that she could see their muscles. The rumors are getting really fast now, and they're like, her husband was a doctor, like he obviously helped her. But he was kind of gone by this part. He had like moved across town.
Right, but is it really a coincidence that she marries a doctor and then medical experiments begin? Like,
Young chiropractor. Supposedly there was a man with a hole drilled in his head and a wooden spoon sticking out in an attempt to, quote, stir his brains. Someone covered in ants and honey. The reports say they did remove 7 enslaved people alive. The others, the so-called lucky ones, were found deceased.
Mm.
The fire destroyed a good portion of the house, but it did not stop the crowds from gathering throughout the day. As sun rose, they were waiting for the sheriff, who just didn't come. I don't know if he was just like,
right, oh, mob justice took over already. I guess I'll go back to bed.
Right. So they get mad again, and they just totally loot the house. Anything valuable they can get their hands on, they've got it. Rumors keep spreading, and then the rumor is that Delphine and her kids have escaped to France. Their boat was docked, I believe, in Mobile, Alabama, for a short amount of time, and that is how they say that they know she went there. The house, since then, has been rebuilt, repurposed, refurnished, resold, redone many times. In 2007, the enchanting actor Nicolas Cage purchased the house, planning to write a novel in it.
That's the place to do it.
Goals. Unfortunately, Mr. Cage ended up selling the house without ever even spending the night there. Prior to that, though, in the mid-19th century, the house became an all-girls school for African American girls. Within a very short time of the school opening, reports of physical assaults came to light. Young girls would approach their teachers crying and saying that woman had scratched them and bruised their arms. These girls were supposed to be too young to know about LaLaurie. So, in 1894, the mansion had been converted into apartments and a tenant was murdered in his room. The police called it a robbery because the room was ransacked, but nothing had been taken. And this poor guy, he had been telling his friends that there were sprites in the house and they were bothering him. Once, the Ghost City Tours group, which will be cited in the sources, they took a medium to the house. And the medium just kept saying, such sadness here, such sadness here. The medium also said after a while they felt the presence of a young boy who liked to play pranks and a young girl who was shy, but she did not feel the presence of any of the LaLaurie family or any anger. On February 4th, 1934, a person named Meigs Frost wrote an article for the New Orleans Times-Picayune newspaper about the LaLaurie family and their house. He wrote that the torture of enslaved people in the house was the result of a smear campaign told by her neighbor, Monsieur Montreuil.
Montreuil?
Sure.
Got it.
Hang on, let Rose say it.
I totally get it. Monsieur Montreuil.
Him. He was down bad for Delphine, but she was not into it. And so, according to Frost, quote, her indulgence of her slaves was well told by her friends. He also said her coachman was fed to sleekness. He provided information on the little girl who supposedly had died after coming out the window and stated that based on his sources, the little girl who leapt from the roof fleeing Delphine was actually sliding down a banister playing and fell.
And it was her fault.
Yeah. So, who knows?
That's such a weird apologist stance.
It is so weird. And how did he find that out?
And it's not like any of that has any bearing on the attic full of people.
Right. And what happened to Delphine? Nobody knows. Rumors continue to fly. One source says after she left New Orleans, we know that she went back to France. Her ship docked in Mobile before continuing the journey to Paris. Her death is shrouded in mystery. One popular account says she died in boar hunting. That seems very unlikely.
You have to be pretty rich to be hunting boar.
Other stories say that she returned to New Orleans later in life and lived under an assumed name, which seems unlikely. However, according to some, the Blanc tomb in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, which would be second husband, holds her body. However, most likely she did die in France. There are records kept in France that show she died December 7th, 1849. However, someone also discovered in the 1930s a plaque in alley number 4 of the St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 that basically was here lies Madame LaLaurie.
Interesting.
Right. Most likely, though, she did live in France while desperately wanting to return to New Orleans, but her children forbid it because they all lived in the same house together for the rest of their days.
Oh, wow. I really would like to imagine that, she wanted to go back to New Orleans so badly that her soul got sucked across an entire ocean to live in that attic for the rest of eternity. But that's just the poet in me.
Quite possible. I'm going to post some pictures on our website from my little haunted tour that I saw when I was in New Orleans. And we need to go because we have to check in an hour.
Yeah, we do. We're back.
We're back.
In no time at all. We just spent a couple of hours walking around, having an amazing time in Old Town Albuquerque.
It was so fun. It's so pretty.
We never go over there, at least at night, which is funny because the park that we tend to walk at all hours is very close to there. We just don't hop over the extra 2 blocks.
Yeah. Well, there's some nice parks in the area, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe the name of the company is the Albuquerque Old Town Ghost Tour. Shout out to Vincent and Stephanie. That was an extremely fun time.
It was really fun.
I won't tell their stories because you really should check it out. There was a whole lot there that was just like, I live like right here and I have never heard that. That is so cool.
I know, so much stuff I had never heard before. Yeah, we're not going to tell you their stories. And we know you guys want to come here for the Balloon Fest anyway, so like you might as well go
Which
there.
just finished actually for the first time in recent memory that had reasonable weather.
Yeah, the balloons went up every day.
And came down. Nobody got hurt. We're very happy about that.
Yeah,
It did knock out my internet, which was mildly irritating.
That's right. The balloons, when they launch, they don't come over this part of town anymore.
Oh, no. They're not
out,
supposed to.
No, they're not supposed to anymore. Yeah, apparently people used to try to go over the mountains, and that never worked.
No, bad idea.
They're very big, rocky mountains, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really see them. In fact, I saw exactly one balloon in the air the whole time. And that was on my way to church on Sunday.
My parents live in a closer area, and they're on a cul-de-sac. I guess they just started putting out an X to be like a semi-official landing spot if they needed it.
That's fun. When I worked in the office, they would land a lot in what used to be a field, and I think now is a vet's office, next to my building. And it is always fun and magical, but when you live here, you tend to go a lot when you have company.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with walking around Old Town. You know, it's close and convenient and cute, and we just don't. Until we have a reason to.
I probably go down there more than you do because I like to get my olive oil down there.
That's awesome. I liked the way that Vincent and Stephanie talked about the energy being concentrated in areas because of like emotion. It made me think of a tour that I took a long time ago in Edinburgh where they were talking about the Mackenzie poltergeist. And that was the same vibe that they were giving tonight. Like it was a really similar tour, which I loved. That was the best explanation of a poltergeist that I've ever heard, which was a series of catastrophic events in the same cemetery turning into a kind of disconnected portion of energy that then creates poltergeist activity.
Well,
like, okay, I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah. I mean, I have like all my weird ideas. I'm like, well, I was telling her after our tour, I'm like, I always imagine like in 300 years they're going to be like, and right here, as you can see through your app or, whatever, science tells us that like energy is concentrated in this place. And like, this is, what happens with it.
This is clearly a ghost, or what we used to consider a ghost.
Right, exactly. Like, to me, there's science for everything. We just haven't found it yet.
I think it's totally reasonable because, germ theory looked like spirit theory at a certain point.
Yeah.
And we know differently now. I do also, I'm a little bit of a skeptic in terms of explanation. I'm a little bit of a skeptic anyway. Like,
same.
Experiences cannot be denied. We did live in a very haunted apartment building, not that far from where we took the ghost tour tonight, quite a few years ago. There used to be a tuberculosis hospital, and that place was absolutely haunted. My exponentially more skeptical partner, he doesn't dispute it at all. He's like, yep, that place was haunted. Mm-hmm.
I've seen things I cannot explain at all, but I'm just like, oh, well, it's probably just like because, science hasn't caught up yet.
I think that's an absolutely valid approach.
It's just weird because I am very interested in so many weird things. I'm always like, I want to, when I die, I hope my piece of my consciousness attaches itself to every single molecule in the entire universe and I can experience it all. But science, obviously, is the reason for anything paranormal.
I don't disagree with you, but I also think that by its very nature, the paranormal moves the goalposts.
Exactly.
It doesn't exist in reality. It's outside of reality, and that's how it exists.
So we were walking down this alley. I love the spooky things. Tell me if you noticed this. There was like an older person in the group. I'm not old, but just older. And they were not from here. I can't remember where they said they're from.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept saying to the person, or they said at least like once or twice to the person they were walking with, "Stop touching me."
There was nobody
You
anywhere
noticed?
close to her.
Yes.
I did notice that. Yeah,
There wasn't.
because the girl that she was saying like, "Oh, stop touching me," was looking at the other person that I think they were with, like,
Yeah.
she's talking about, and I was like,
Yeah, they looked confused, and that I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
I did get a little bit of a leg boop where I was
I'm
convinced
jealous.
after they were talking about the ghost cat occasionally making an appearance. I swear it felt like your sweater flap or something, like from a longer sweater, was kind of like bouncing against my knee for a second. And she saw me kind of like man, brush off my leg there. And again, nothing near. Nothing. It's
Right,
always-
I thought she was like doing there's a cockroach on the ground.
There's just a lot of roaches in Old Town. If you want to
Yeah,
live there,
I mean,
you deal with it.
It's called Old Town for a reason. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, power of suggestion and everything, but it was kind of fun.
It was fun. I liked seeing the oldest building in town.
Yes.
What's it called again?
There were 3 or 4 that were
Yeah.
pre 1860s or something. But the High Noon is one of them. It's one of the oldest buildings. That was very cool.
I know. I kind of like look at the inside and see what I see in the mirror in the women's bathroom.
I've been to a Christmas party there. It didn't seem especially live, but it's a Christmas party. Everybody's talking and lights everywhere.
It was really fun, and
I really can't recommend this tour more highly, but honestly, I can't recommend more highly checking out any ghost tours in your area.
yeah, you
Any
should.
city of size is going to have them. There's dedicated folks all over the world that just tell a great story, and you never know all the stories you don't know about your city, because I didn't know a bunch of them. Ghost hunting's fun.
So let us know what you guys are doing for Spooktober. Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.